A lot of people don't use revolvers anymore. Call it old technology, whatever you want to describe it. People have gone more towards semi-autos. I wanted to find out for myself if these guns are, comparable to a semi-auto. If you're thinking about buying a gun or thinking about buying a revolver, you should heavily consider it because they are great options for self-defense. Simplicity, reliability, those are very strong and you shouldn't discount those. But there are limitations to carrying revolvers. Today I want to talk about revolvers. I'm Mike with USCCA and we're here at Range LA and we are shooting and testing out some of these revolvers we got from Arley Arms. We have right here a 38 Special that Arley's customized, done a lot of internal work, handle, grip, all that stuff, as well as a Smith & Wesson 38 but long barrel. So these are comparable guns. They both fire a 38 Special. One is obviously gold plated for one of the clients, and this one is just more Cerakoted. Besides the Cerakoting and the coloring and the internals, they're pretty much like for like guns. A lot of people don't use revolvers anymore. Call it old technology, whatever you want to describe it. People have gone more towards semi-autos. I understand why, right? There's limited carrying capacity for how many rounds you have. The tech is just a little bit outdated by comparison. But I wanted to find out for myself if these guns are, comparable to a semi-auto, right? So this one's a concealable. This one is, not, I should say this one is less concealable, but they do both have strengths that for you at home, if you're thinking about buying a gun or thinking about buying a revolver, you should heavily consider it because they are great options for self-defense. There's a lot of perks. Firstly, for the positive, let's talk about the reliability of a revolver. Revolvers, there's no slide action going back and forth, so they don't jam the same way. So if you're carrying inside your waistband or even inside a pocket and you were to fire out, there's no way to stop that round from firing. So you can't just hold the slide, prevent it from going back and forth. They're very easy to clean and they're very easy to manipulate and work. There's not a ton of parts. Very user-friendly. You put the rounds in, you close the wheel, and you start firing. Single action, double action, you take your pick. If you want to go, really accurate, lightweight trigger pull, you got your single action. And if it's in your pocket, it can be the hammers forward, and you have a double action. And something else that's great about revolvers is there's no safety. So you don't have to go on and off. The gun itself, the heavy trigger pull is your safety. So you really don't have to worry about accidental discharges or going to pull the trigger and it doesn't fire. It will fire. Simplicity, reliability, those are very strong and you shouldn't discount those much at all. But there are limitations to carrying revolvers. So first, let's just talk about size, right? The size of a revolver doesn't really correlate to a revolver versus a semi-auto. This is a compact, so this 38 Special is very small. This is the size of my hand. This can fit in your pocket, it can fit anywhere. The size of this revolver, this is much bigger. This is a longer barrel, they come even bigger. This is more like your home defense, or if this were in a vehicle, you're probably not putting this in your waistband. So what matters about the size of a revolver? Well, this one in particular, the metal on it and the size of it, it's very heavy. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, it depends what you're looking for, but in terms of weight and recoil, the heavy weight of this revolver has very low recoil because it puts most of the weight in the barrel and it puts it forward, so you fire and it gets back on target very quickly. This one, on the other hand, it's very lightweight. It's meant for concealability. It's meant to be small, lightweight. And guess what? When you fire this, there's significantly more recoil than this heavy one here in the full size. So anytime you go compact, it's going to be just a bit snappier. But let's go on to caliber, okay? These are 38 Specials. Most times you see a 38 Special, it's in a revolver. A lot of semi-autos have gone to 9mm. They've gone to different rounds, even a 380. But a 38 Special is a very good round in that, compared to a 9mm, it has less recoil. There's more energy, there's more pressure in a 9mm, and it comes out hotter and faster. So a 9mm is going to snap a little bit harder. So if you had a comparable gun size and you put a 9mm in it, they're gonna snap harder, they're gonna recoil higher, and it's gonna be a little bit harder to control. So maybe you're a smaller, lighter person, maybe not that strong, maybe this is your first gun. 38 Special is a great caliber to carry in that you can control it much easier.
Hey, I'm pausing the video right now to let you know about a free giveaway that USCCA has going on right now. Check out the link below for all the details, and let's get back to the video.
So keeping on the round topic, if you look at the wheels on this gun, this is a 6-round capacity, and this is a 5-round capacity because it's just a smaller diameter. To keep it concealed, 5 rounds is what you get. When you're thinking about self-defense, you got to really think about how many rounds you're carrying. What's the use case? So most people miss their shots. You know, when they're shooting at the range, their targets are, you know, quite large, and their spread is everywhere. If you're in a self-defense situation, you're firing fast. Those 5 shots, those 6 shots, that goes very quickly. And the reload speeds of a revolver are just much slower than a semi-auto. So because it's a slower reload, and it's not to say you can't train faster, but it will always be slower than a semi-auto if you have the same like-for-like person training. It is just a different tech, and you had speed reloads. You're not going to put those in your pocket. So it's slower reloads, but also you get fewer rounds. That to me is something where I would say if I had an option of carrying a semi-auto with 10 or 15 versus 5 rounds in a revolver, I'm always going to pick the higher round count, always. Even if it's a different caliber, I'm going to pick the higher rounds because 1 round can be lethal. You know, why not take 10 of them or 15 of them over 5? That's not to say you shouldn't look at these to buying them, but you have to understand you're severely limited in your capacity when you have 5 or 6 shots. Going over the sights on these guns, the sights on a revolver are designed a little bit differently than sights on a normal slide of a semi-auto. I shouldn't say normal, but it's a different gun. The sights on these, there's a gap, like a gutter that goes down the rail like this, and then there's a angle slope upward of a, in this case, yellow or orange sight. Well, if you looked at it and you see the full ramp slope, you're probably going to be shooting high. So you actually have to angle it almost down to make that yellow flush with the receiving gutter here. So what I found is most people who shoot these revolvers for the first time, they find that their grip angle is aiming upward. And they look through their sights and they think they're aligned and they aim upward and they shoot high. Whereas once they actually find the groove where the front sight meets the rear sight, it actually is a significant angle downward. So they're a little bit harder to find in my opinion. I think the traditional semi-auto where you have uprights and a post in the front, I find those much faster to get onto targets, and as well, a red dot is even faster than those. So the sights are not great. They're not great by comparison. But here's another pro for revolvers when it comes to cleaning. The cleaning of these guns is super simple. You just push out the barrel a couple times with your brush, and then you do the same thing with the wheel, and then you wipe it down with a rag, and you're pretty much good to go. There's not a ton you have to oil. You're really looking at like rust prevention as opposed to oiling for functionality, whereas with a lot of semi-autos, if you're not oiling them, it builds up a ton of friction, metal on metal sliding. So they are cleaned much quicker, much easier. Downside of the cleaning is the action on these. It's hard to get to with the oil because the action is hidden. And so what tends to happen is that oil will gum up and grease up over time. Over time, you're gonna have to take that gun apart. Now, taking a revolver apart and field stripping it is much more challenging to do than it is with a pistol, at least in my experience. find it much harder to strip these down significantly than I can with a semi-auto pistol. So day-to-day maintenance and cleaning, much easier. Full in-depth cleaning, a little bit harder. When you carry or use a revolver, you're just carrying a different type of weapon. Yes, they're both firearms with a semi-auto, but they're not the same gun. So for instance, the double action on these guns is very heavy. Typical double action trigger pulls are 12 to 15 pounds, maybe even heavier on some revolvers. And when you pull back for single action, they're gonna be lighter, but they're still pretty heavy, 5 to 7 pound pulls on most actions for revolvers. Now at Arley, they tuned all the internals, buffed out a whole bunch of parts, and made the trigger significantly lighter. So I think this is a 5 pound or 7 pound initial pull, and then a 2 pound single action. And that's a big difference. That's a huge difference. Makes it shooting it much easier. But if you've never shot a double action revolver, it's a different experience. It's a long pull. When you pull that trigger in double action and then you have to let out the entire way. The reset isn't short like a lot of semi-auto pistols where you fire from out here, but the reset is much shorter. The reset is all the way out again, and if you don't let it out all the way, you actually can't even pull that trigger. It's not like a short stroke where you just get like that dead trigger feeling. It actually doesn't pull. So that's really challenging. It's definitely something you can overcome with learning, but I'm out on the range and I'm firing this thing, and I find rapid fire to be very challenging, because after the first shot, you would hope that it goes to single action like a SIG or another gun that has a hammer, double and single action. But it's not the case. It's double action every single time you fire it, unless you pull that hammer back, shorten the trigger, and you get single action. So you have to manually do that. Once again, not a bad thing, just something you have to get used to when you purchase this. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna take these out to the range, I'm gonna test fire them, I'm gonna see what I like about each one of these and report back. There is a dramatic snap difference between these two. So compact 38 special, longer barrel 38 special, much heavier weight, much lighter weight, easy to conceal, not at all concealable, but the difference is very little recoil. I was super surprised by this. This has quite a bit of snap to it. So I think a lot of times what happens is people buy a small gun thinking that smaller is easier because the grip is smaller or easier to hold. That's not necessarily the case. The caliber of the munition plus or minus the weight of the gun makes a big difference. If this gun was really heavy, it'd probably be different. But as light as it is, as easy as it is to pack and put in my bag or put inside my waistband, throws a significant snap to it. I also have to say that the carrying of 5 rounds versus 6, you know, even though neither 5 nor 6 are, that's not a lot of rounds, having 1 extra round, when you have so few, feels like a lot. That's a huge percentage gain. So tiny gun. I can fit this inside my hoodie. You wouldn't think anything of it if I was just sitting here holding it. To be able to pull it out very quickly, nice and compact. The double action, most double actions are quite heavy. This double action has been tuned, so it's a little bit lighter, but the single action is really light. Sean says this is about 2 pounds. I believe it. It's a really light pull. The double action, about 4. He says it's about 5 pounds. That feels about right. So this gun, if you're not used to shooting revolvers, you have to pretty much just assume that reloads reloads aren't really happening in a gunfight with a revolver. They do have speed reloads. I know law enforcement used to carry speed reloaders when they were carrying revolvers, but you at home for like a personal defense, having a spare wheel to have a speed reload, that doesn't seem very realistic to me. What seems realistic is that you have your 5 shots. You know, if you want to carry loose ammo, that's fine, but on the everyday carry, that doesn't seem reasonable to me. Maybe it does to you, but to have 5 shots coming out of my waistband or have it tucked away, that's nice. I would love to have more, but the reliability, knowing that you can have it tucked into your pocket, pull it out, and there's no jamming. You could fire it from your pocket. You could just fire straight out of the pocket like this, and you don't have to worry about the action getting caught in fabric. It's just gonna fire, so it's self-contained. That is nice. Something you always gotta worry about when you're shooting a revolver. If you look at my thumb right now, my thumb, as I shoot, I'm so used to firing, semi-autos, that my thumb sitting here, I'm getting a lot of the flash from the explosion of the round going off. Kind of snaps on your finger a little bit, but otherwise this is a really cool gun. Pretty accurate for having, what is that, like an 1.5 inch barrel, but the customization of the grips, the customization of the trigger, this is much different than your standard Smith & Wesson 38 Special, like the one I have that's from the 70s or 80s that my father gave me. This one, it's a much crisper bite, and it feels smoother, much smoother than the trigger. Now this guy, on the other hand, this is a different beast. This is you're not going to be concealing this gun, but having 6 shots and having not much recoil at all, that's a different shooting experience. I've never been a huge fan of 38 Specials, primarily because the guns that they have are always in revolvers that I've seen. But the more and more I shoot revolvers, the more I get comfortable with them, the more and more I start to like them. This one's so much more weight in the front. So as I fire it from double action, I'm expecting so much more of a kick like the last one, and it doesn't come. The weight hangs forward on it. Single action, probably a similar trigger pull. Yeah, that feels about 2 pounds as well. That's so light. So incredibly accurate because you have no recoil to work. Just my natural muscle memory trying to tap and rack. There is no tapping and racking with a revolver. So much longer barrel, much heavier, carries an extra round. Something I'd say about the sights too. The sights on revolvers I've just never been a fan of because they are angled down, and so you have to look down the rail of the gun, almost like a shotgun, how a shotgun has a groove down the side and then you have a little bead at the end. This very similar design makes it really challenging to see those sights. But once you get used to it, it's pretty decent. Also, these guns are great for firing one-handed. Firing rapid with a revolver, a little bit more challenging because the double action, you have to go much further out with your finger to reset the trigger. This thing is pretty nice to shoot one-handed. Just the weight of it, the way it hangs forward like that, not much recoil whatsoever. Wow, there's so much more bite in this gun. Now, does that bite matter to me? Not so much. I shoot guns all the time. Does that matter to you? It might. If you're not used to shooting, you don't shoot a lot, that kick back into your hand, it can hurt. If you're spending 8 hours a day at the range, training, your hands are gonna be pretty sore. If you're a man or a woman who doesn't shoot very often, a grip like that and the power of this round in that tiny gun, it kicks pretty hard inside your hand. It's not firing up so much as it is firing back. So I'm not too worried about it going off station. I can get back on the sights pretty quickly, but that's not a light, easy gun to shoot. Just because it's small doesn't mean it's easy to shoot. So there you have it, firing 2 38 Specials, Smith & Wesson, long barrel, short barrel. My opinion from these are great guns. These are great options whether you want home defense, in your car, or inside your waistband or your handbag. These are really, really good options. They're limited by the round counts. They are very, very small round counts, but using a 38 special as opposed to a 9mm, much, much less recoil that you're getting, especially in this guy, the heavier one. So it's a really good gun, I think, as an alternative carry for a newer shooter, somebody who doesn't like a lot of recoil. The customization from Arley's been really great. Lighter trigger pulls as well as the grips, really great grips, and the internals have all been redone, so these are really smooth. We'd love to hear from you. What kind of revolvers do you have experience with, and what is your go-to revolver? A lot of people are going to say 38 Special, I'm guessing, but I'd love to hear it. Maybe you have a 44 Magnum or something even cooler than that. Let us know in the comments section as well. Hit that like and subscribe. We'd love to hear from you, any kind of guns you'd like to have us review in the future. And as always, continue training, because that's how we move forward and that's how we progress.